Hey, I'm Mike.
Oh, hey, I'm Jose, and this is
One, one, two, nine, one, one, two.
So on this one, we got a chance to talk with Matt Gilmartin and Seth Faulk. Collectively, they're about one half of On the Sun. We got a chance to talk to them about their musical education, their love and hate of the road, the way they create music, and how they relate with music. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. We had a blast recording it.
Thank you guys for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's cool.
Yeah, so basically, I'm just a huge fan of music. I play a little bit myself, and my brother Jose just kind of had the idea to just start interviewing musicians and hearing more about their creative process. So yeah, just kind of really quick introduce your guys' self, and we'll start from there.
Yeah, well, my name's Seth Faulk. I'm a drummer. I live in New York City, and I also sing. And yeah, I've been working as a freelancer for about 13 years, and I also play in a band with my roommate Matt.
Nice.
Yeah, my name's Matt Gilmartin. Yeah, I play with Seth in a band called On the Sun, and I do a bunch of like engineering and production work and stuff for that group and for other things. I play bass mostly, but I am a multi-instrumentalist. I can play guitar and piano to just varying degrees of competency. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you guys each kind of dive in about with your musical background? Like how you guys studied, if you guys took any school, if you guys are all just kind of self-taught,
Sure.
the whole process of how you became who you are today, type of thing.
Yeah, I started playing when I was 7. That's when I started taking private lessons from kid. And then throughout school, whenever I played in like all the bands and the orchestras and whatever in middle school and high school. And then I went to college originally as a classical percussion performance major. But after 2 years of a lot of shedding and not a whole lot of fun, I ended up transferring to the studio production program at my school at Purchase College. I had been playing a lot of sessions for the pop music majors there, and sort of inadvertently doing a bunch of arranging and production work for them, and enough so that I could put together a portfolio and pass my audition for the production program. And so my degree is in studio production.
Okay.
Since then, I've gone back to playing kit and doing a lot of pop sessions and touring with pop groups and rock groups and sort of everything in between. And a few years ago, 4 years ago?
Oh, geez. I don't know, something like that.
Something like 4 years ago. Maybe it'll even be 5 in August.
Who knows how long it is in this quarantine time?
I don't know anymore. I playing On the Sun, and that's been my primary project since then.
Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I started taking piano lessons when I was a kid at 6 or 7, I think, first grade, whatever that would have been. But I didn't really start taking music seriously until I was probably like 11 or 12. I started playing bass around then. I had been playing cello in school, but again, like not with very much commitment. And then, I got a electric bass and started like messing around and trying to have bands and stuff. And then I went to what is kind of like a performing arts high school, I guess, or like an alternative art-focused high school in Ann Arbor called Community. And we had, I guess like the type of jazz program that like sends kids around to like compete in these like tournaments, I guess, basically like, jazz festival kind of things where you like enter and you compete and get awards and all this stuff, right? There's like a whole circuit of these like academic jazz festival type deals. And so we did a bunch of that kind of stuff. And that's really where like my actual musical education started in earnest. And then I went to a couple of different schools for like music. I took some music technology classes and I took some like music like, vocal arrangement and music history and theory classes and stuff in college, but I didn't really eventually graduate with a music degree of any kind.
Right.
And I've been playing in bands really of a wide variety since then. I've been in New York for like 10 years now, I guess. And spent a good portion of that time playing with On the Sun, but I've done a whole bunch of other projects and stuff in the past. And yeah, no, go ahead.
Just curious to hear you guys' viewpoint on school. What do you think? It's kind of a loaded question, but what do you think? If you can even answer this, is like the primary. What'd you get out of school? I know you got all the knowledge, but is there something specific in music that you kind of you really grasp with school in your personal experiences?
So for me, there were like two primary things that I really got from school, other than just like the knowledge that the professors were bestowing upon us. One was I really got to work on my ability to listen, and to be like part of an ensemble that obviously had begun in other bands in like when I was a kid and in middle school and high school, but the focus in college, the first thing and the most important thing that I started learning when I was a performance major especially, was how to listen to the other instruments, the other voices and what they were saying. The second thing, and maybe the more important thing that I got from college, was the network of musicians that I went to school with. Purchase was in Westchester, only about half an hour from Manhattan. And not only was I playing in the city a lot while I was in college, but also after graduating, that's New York City is where most of the people that I had been playing with in school were moving to start their professional careers. So when I came to New York, I had this Rolodex of people who knew my sound, knew my style, knew my personality, and who I could continue to collaborate with and make some business with. So the network was a big deal for me.
Right.
I think that's probably the biggest thing. Yeah. I mean, I will say this. I think that the music programs now are like a lot better than they were even, like 10 or 15 years ago. Like the places like Berkeley and maybe like set a gold standard, but the music schools in general broadly across the country are doing a much better job of preparing people for like the broad range of skill sets that they need to be good freelance musicians, right? Where I think certainly when we were college age, like most of the programs were really focused on like academia, like you were basically training people to be music professors or like teachers, right? And I think they're doing a much better job now of giving you like a broad range of skills and like an understanding of the basic business of how music works and like understanding all the technology that you're going to need to be a successful writer and whatever in like a modern context. And the programs are a lot more robust, I think, across the board. So kids are like young musicians, I think, are coming out with like what is clearly a really good musical education. I mean, it's noticeable, I think.
Well, coming off of that, like you just said, the business of music. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. The business of music. So, how do you guys like keep from letting the music get like just becoming a business, and like the passion getting sucked out of it, and just the business part of it taking over? How do you guys keep that passion part going?
Sometimes it's tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it can start to feel like anything that you do for a living is going to have its moments where it feels like a job. And I think that that's okay and to be expected. But you always hope for as little of that as possible. You always hope for it to always reflect your passion and your creativity in a way that feels authentic to you. Working as a sideman, I've definitely had to take plenty of gigs that I wished I wasn't playing, but needed to at the time for like usually a financial reason. But I try to keep 2 of 3 pillars. And I didn't come up with this. A friend of mine who's another drummer actually brought this theory to me. But the idea is that if the 3 pillars are great money, great music, or great people, as long as you have 2 of those things, then it's worth it to play the gig. And it took me a while to realize that, and to not just take whatever came my way. But eventually I was able to start implementing that idea. And I find that that always keeps things feeling good. And then as far as like staying fresh with creativity, it's just about listening to other players, listening to other groups and artists that inspire you, and like keep kicking your ass and making you want to be more creative, to achieve something more, to write something new, to be a part of something meaningful.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's tough. Like there's times, because, you know, even taking like just On the Sun, for example, there are times when, like, you know, we'll play with like slightly different lineups of musicians depending on like what part of the country you're in, right? Like, you know, like our a good friend of ours, Joseph, had done a bunch of playing on some of the records and a lot of production work, but he lives in Detroit. So like when we play in the Midwest, a lot of times we'll go out there and pick him up and he'll do like a certain number of shows with us, right? And sometimes, like, just by necessity, it's like, even in a theoretical sense, the band has like a really large repertoire, and you get like a certain amount of stuff together as like a tight show for that particular group of musicians, or for a particular set of shows that you need to fit into a certain time period. And like sometimes, even in a context where the creativity is pretty good and you write new stuff, you get kind of hemmed into this thing where it's like, okay, well, we really just have to do the set, because what you need to do is deliver professionally, like, and do stuff that you know is going to work with the audience and stuff. And so there's just like a lot of incentives to kind of do the same thing over and over again. And it gets tiring. You get a little beat down by that no matter what, you know, but you just try to fight against it as much as you can. And like remember to just like change it occasionally, just for the sake of changing it, just for your own sanity and like engagement level. Right. Yeah.
I know. I'm a hip hop head myself, so speaking from that, I know that a lot of hip hop shows that I've seen suck. Like live performances are awful. But on that same note, some of my favorite groups to watch are like De La Soul, or back in the day the Beastie Boys, and that's one thing I noticed in their shows is like they have these marks that they always hit every single time.
Yeah.
Just go back to this thing because they know. I mean, they've been doing the same thing for the past 20 plus years, 30 years now. Yeah. So, but I can also see how that could get a bit monotonous. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you build these things over time with any group of musicians that you play together a lot. You get a certain vocabulary going, and then you have these devices that you know you can use that'll work to get a certain kind of rise out of an audience or whatever, right. You know. And so it's hard not to rely on those things, and they can be the things that are your strengths can become like ruts kind of that you're working against, right?
Right.
You lean on too much. Yeah.
I also think that you know, when you're playing live, especially, you go to live shows and it is a show, right? So like those markers that you hit may be part of the show insofar as it's like telling sort of the emotional story of the journey that you're taking the audience on. So hitting those marks can be really important, and that's the thing that is what needs to be fought against. The thing that I feel like I need to fight against is seeing that thing coming, seeing that marker coming, and knowing that it's supposed to feel this way, and trying to genuinely feel that in that moment.
Right. That's another question I have. Yeah. And to follow up, how do you kind of, because when you're creating, it seems almost instinctual. Like when it's something like when you know you've created something like really good, it's in the moment. There's not like much thought about it. You're just like really in that moment, and your feelings and your expressions come through with what you're playing. And for me, it's always been impressive when someone can revisit that place with the song that they might have wrote when they were feeling this particular way. How do you guys feel that? Is it a challenge to get back into those emotions, or like happy, sad, whatever the song is, you kind of have to like become that to express that through the music?
I think you don't necessarily have to relive it. I think your emotional relationship to a song can change over time, right? So you don't, in order to carry it off, you don't necessarily have to, at least in my experience, I don't think you necessarily have to be able to totally like re-inhabit the original emotion that you had. I think you have to have some meaningful emotional connection to it in order to deliver it well, right? So that, I mean, that might sound esoteric, but I think like that relationship can change over time. You know, like the way you feel about a song can kind of change and evolve, and what you relate to about it and experience with it can change, but you've got to feel some kind of connection to it, you know, because if you just are exhausted by it and you're just like, I just don't want to play this song anymore, it's just not gonna come off well and engaging and you know, just won't have the right energy. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that if the song is good, you're going to feel something, and that thing can change. I think that the same way that different people will interpret your song different ways and connect it to different parts of their lives, as the performer of an original song, you can feel a certain way about it the first time you play it, and that can change as you continue to play it, but it hopefully is still making you feel something. And if you relate it to a different part of your life, depending on what you're going through, maybe that thing feels different. But yeah, I think it's just about delivering some sort of emotional content.
Yeah, it's really important.
Can you guys kind of talk? You guys talked about the creative process. Can you guys talk about? I'm obsessed with knowing artists' creative process and how I guess they get into their zone, like how they feel comfortable recording. Is it like the room environment? Is it like, do you have to have things just certain way? Can you guys kind of talk about that a little bit?
I guess recording and writing probably.
Yeah, I feel like there are probably, I mean, everyone will have different answers for this, I think. And myself working primarily as a sideman in a rhythm section, the thing that I always love the most for the sake of creativity is to be in the room with the live band and just grooving and like vibing on each other, playing off of each other, and just like sort of having a musical conversation and letting that be the basis for the emotion that I'm putting into the music. To be able to sit behind a drum kit and have Matt behind his bass and just play really teaches us a lot about each other and about where the song kind of wants to go. And I think that in that situation, that's when I feel creative. That's when I can sort of play with things and throw different things at Matt, and he can throw different things back at me. We can really have a conversation and sort of just vibing music. And I think for me, being in the room with the band is the most important thing.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because actually when I do a fair amount of like writing and recording stuff, like, and the process that I really developed around that is rooted very much in what Seth is talking about, right? Which is like, you start in a place where you're an accompanist primarily. You play supporting roles, and you know that is very much the skill set that you cultivate, right? It's kind of like responsive and it's editorial and stuff. It's much harder to at least for me, I had to like trick myself into that place almost, right? Because that is very easy and natural and fluid for me, right? Once there's an initial idea, it's very easy to turn on the faucet and be like, oh, okay, well, we could do this with it, we can do that with it, right? And to game that out of my head, like pretty easily, right? It's the initial thing. And I've really had to, like, I almost treat writing with myself the same way that you do, the way you would jam with people, right? Like really almost any idea that I can get down that has like a nice vibe to it, and if I can just get that initial thing in, then I can really turn my rhythm section player mind on and be like, oh, okay, we'll just do this with the arrangement. Oh, we'll try this, and it's like, it's very easy for me at that point, right? So I really tried to manufacture that, almost where like I'm trying to manufacture that conversation that Seth is talking about for myself, just like, but.
And that's what you're just talking about when you're just writing stuff by yourself. Do you do recording by yourself as well, or?
I do, yeah. I have a recording rig in this. We have like
You're actually on top
studio.
of the control station.
Yeah, it's true.
Right on. Have you guys been jamming a lot, the two of you? I mean,
no, actually, not since this whole thing happened. I think I know I've been struggling a lot to feel. Oh, hey, I've been struggling a lot to feel creatively motivated right now. But it's something that we've been talking about a lot, putting some sets together and just playing and getting our instruments, or at least we should say getting my instrument back under my fingers and in my hands and feet.
Going back to the topic of creativity and with this whole coronavirus and sometimes I don't, for a creative, when you kind of get into a rut, because it seems like creativity is kind of one of those fluctuating things. How do you guys kind of manage those time periods, or like move forward, or do you kind of spend like so do you guys kind of spend time studying specifically, creative time specifically, practicing specifically, or is it all kind of interwoven?
It's a good question. I think that there are a bunch of different, or maybe a few different camps on how to proceed when you feel like you're in a rut. People, like, they keep hammering away, and if they are feeling some lack of creativity, they just keep putting in work until like creativity spontaneously returns to them. Some people feel like if you aren't feeling creative, maybe other things in your life that you need to nurture, then again cultivate that creativity, whether it's like your diet or exercise or other forms of entertainment and things like that. I think, and also there are a couple friends who even have a workshop, an online workshop that's all about different exercises you can do to not only break through your blocks, but also just to maintain longevity in those spurts of creativity as well.
That's awesome.
I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called Writing Outside the Blocks, but I'll have to look that, get back to you.
We'll make sure we get that in here somehow.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I do, guys. In my head, they're slightly separate things. I will be practicing more lately, just in terms of practicing like than I have in a while, because the gigs aren't happening and the shows and stuff aren't happening, and so you don't have that sort of natural like, oh, I'm gonna go play for any number of hours like on a regular basis. That kind of keeps you physically in shape, right? In terms of your chops and your hands and stuff. And so I've been doing more like just traditional, like I'm gonna learn this song, or I'm gonna run scales or arpeggios or whatever, like than I have in a long time. But I think that's a separate thing. There's like a psychological pressure to create your expectations for yourself in terms of how creative you're going to be, right? And I think like the work of writing or recording or making beats or whatever the case is like is like a creative process in a way that just like really purely cultivating your instrument is not that same thing, right? And to me, there's like a little bit less, like I don't put as much pressure on myself about the just playing the instrument, right? So there's there is a certain purity to just picking up the instrument and playing it when you're not like really worrying about like, oh, I gotta like make something dope, or I gotta finish this thing, or whatever it is, right? So I do think, you know, using that, at least for myself, using that is like a good avenue back to creativity. Because creativity is like, if I don't feel like I've got the wherewithal or the focus necessary, the inspiration, like I can still just pick up the instrument and do that on a regular basis and kind of find your way back to the right frame of mind, you know? But I think it's different for everybody, really.
Yeah.
Do you guys have like spaces that you go to outside of music, either to like step away from it and just be like, all right, I need to reset, or also like just like something to help you and help inspire you outside of music?
This feels like a leading question.
Yeah.
It's not. But, for you, I think I know the answer for you, but this is more for Matt. I already know your answer, but you might as well answer anyway.
Yeah, well, as you know, Jose being my sisuk, my kung fu uncle, I find a ton of inspiration from Wing Chun Kung Fu. I train as hard and as often as I possibly can. And even now, during the COVID lockdown, we've been able to continue training because our association has gone online, thanks to you and the other Sifus. So that's been really great. But yeah, not only do I find the inspiration in training, but perhaps even more so in teaching. And really just working toward my goals of like furthering my knowledge of Wing Chun, and also my ability to teach others about it.
I guess the question should have been for you. Do you use it to like step away and like go out so you can refocus on music, or do you use it to help inspire you? But that same question will go to Matt now.
Right. Well, I think I use it for everything. It's
Okay.
just my most powerful draw is to that. But yeah, go ahead.
No, I would say I do need quiet. Like I feel like I need to let my ears rest in order to like to I don't know, in order like to have, you know, like they get tired, you know, you listen to music and podcasts and stuff all day. Sometimes I need to have stillness in order to reset. But I can find that a lot of different ways. I do a lot of reading or whatever to just try to keep, you know, get up in the morning and have like a bunch of quiet hours before I start making noise. I think it's really helpful. But,
Yeah, you got to hear the silence to listen to the noise.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
To that point, it's always really interesting because a lot of times we're on tour, people will be asking us, like when we go city to city, what it is that we're listening to, like in the van, on the bus, like whatever. And we very often, and I don't know if you've found this in other projects as well, but I've found that after being on the road for a certain amount of time, sometimes the vehicle you're traveling in is just quiet. It's like all we're doing is playing music as hard and as emotionally as we can, and often very loud.
Right.
And so like when we get to be back in travel mode to the next gig, sometimes it's just like there's silence or reading.
Yeah,
or
totally.
Maybe it's like video games or something. But like I don't want to hear music right now. I just need a break. Give me a couple hours to like just chill on something else.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's pretty common.
So that in the van question, like not in the van, but in general, give me like either your favorite or your top 5 favorite bands or artists.
Oh. Well, I mean,
it doesn't have to be 5. You don't have to give me a list of 5. You can give me 2. You can give me.
I mean, I'm
7.
always down to listen to. Obviously, Matt knows this. Prince, the band, really anyone that played at the Last Waltz. But I've also, I think as far as touring records go, I get down on like Robin a lot.
Okay.
And one of my another staple that just popped in my head is Alanis Morissette's "Jagged Little Pill." I love the section stuff on there. I love Dave Navarro on there. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I don't know. That's hard. It's like it changes for me all the time. Honestly, like It really does. It evolves like constantly, but I will, you know, there's a couple of things I can always go back to, like Stevie Wonder. I can always go back to. Michelle Ndegeocello is somebody who is kind of a little more obscure, but is one of absolutely my favorite artists and bass players of all time. I think her stuff is fantastic. And I can pretty much always get something new out of any one of her records. There's some that I like more than others, but like they're always worth a listen. I think that you know, the last D'Angelo record that came out was like really incredible.
Yeah.
Spent like a whole year listening to that and learning all those parts and just like really diving into that. That was great. I like Bjork a lot too. Yeah, Bjork is fantastic. Really somebody that just does like a superlative job performing like every time she puts a show together. So
all right, we're coming to the end here, but it's easy, but in a couple of words, like what does music mean to you guys? Like you guys
Wow.
words.
Community, communication, emotion. Those are three big words for me.
Right on.
yeah, you know, I don't know. I think it means a lot of things. I mean, I do think that, you know, it's music just fundamentally touches something about people that is different than any other art form, you know, and it's really visceral, right? People really feel it. And yeah, it's like an endlessly fascinating thing to be involved in and play around with. And I really very much look forward to an opportunity to go back to playing live music in front of people again whenever it is that we can safely do that, because it is unlike anything else I've experienced in life, you know. So I value it almost like more than I can really articulate well.
I would say
Our time's about to extend in any second, but I want to thank you guys for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Your guys' names, where they can find you, all that.
Plug time.
Seth Faulk, Matt Gilmartin.
Yeah. We are on social media. You look up the band also that we play on the Sun Music, and on socials, and we have a website too. We are on Spotify and Apple Music, and that'll link you to our individual stuff as well. So yeah,
it was a pleasure. Thank you guys for the knowledge. Thank you guys for talking and the conversation.
I hope you guys enjoyed that one. We had a blast talking to those guys. It was a great time. Both really cool dudes. If you want to check them out, you can check them out at onthesunmusic.com. We'll also have a link to their socials somewhere. Please check them out. Great dudes. Support their music. Check out our next one coming up soon. We will be talking to RJ, the mastermind behind Natural Sway. Can't wait.